Foundation, creating opportunities for a better life.
In Excel, every workbook is different. That means you may want to modify certain things, like the size and layout of your cells, to better fit the data you're working with. This column has been resized, for example, but not quite enough. Most of the text is still getting cut off. I'm going to increase the width a little more by positioning my mouse over the line in the column heading, then clicking and dragging it to the right. Another option is to auto-size the column. This will automatically adjust the width so it fits the contents of the cells exactly. Just double-click the line instead of dragging it. Now the column is perfectly sized to the text. Rows work the same way. You can adjust them manually or auto-size them to fit the height of your text. Sometimes it's useful to be able to resize all of your cells at once. In this example, I'd like to make all of my rows the exact same height. To do this, click the Select All button in the top left corner. Then resize a row, it doesn't matter which one, and the change will be applied to the entire worksheet. Next, I need to add another row to this list. I'd like to put it in between row 4 and row 5. To add a new row, all you have to do is select the row heading below where you want the new one to appear. Then click the Insert command. The process is similar for inserting a new column. Just select the column heading to the right of where you want the new one to go. Click the Insert command, and a column will appear to the left. Deleting columns and rows is just as easy. First, select the column or row you want to delete. Then click the Delete command. The column or row will be deleted, causing the other cells to move and fill in the gap automatically. Just remember that there's a difference between clearing and deleting. Deleting cells removes them from your worksheet. Clearing just removes the contents. You can also move a column or row to a different location. In this example, we'll move a column. All you have to do is select the one you want, then click the Cut command. Next, select the column to the right of where you want the column to be moved. Click the Insert drop-down menu on the ribbon, then choose Insert Cut Cells. Another useful technique for rearranging data is the ability to hide certain columns or rows. For example, I don't really need to see these 3 columns right now. I'd rather focus on the customer's email addresses. If we right-click, then choose Hide from the menu, the columns temporarily disappear. To unhide them, select the columns on either side of the ones that are hidden, then right-click again, and choose Unhide. Let's fast forward to the finished worksheet. Next, I'd like to take a look at wrapping text, which is one way of addressing cells that contain more text than they can actually display. For example, I'd like to resize my column of addresses to about half its current size, but still be able to see the contents. We can do this using the Wrap Text command on the ribbon. As you can see, this displays the text on multiple lines. Now for the finishing touch, combining the cells in the top row so the title of my worksheet can be centered in a single large cell. To do this, select the cells you want to merge, then click the Merge and Center command. There, that's perfect. To access more merge options, open the drop-down menu here. You can merge across, creating merged rows instead of a single large cell if you have multiple cells selected. You can also merge without centering, or split your cells up again. The best way to learn about merging cells, wrapping text, and working with columns and rows is to practice. So the next time you're using Excel, look for ways that you can customize your worksheet to better fit your data.
Goodwill Community Foundation, creating opportunities for a better life.
Remember using formulas to calculate math problems in school, like 2 plus 2 equals 4, or 2 pizzas times $10 equals $20? Excel can use these same formulas to work with numerical data in your spreadsheets, just like a calculator. Excel uses standard operators for its math equations, like a plus sign for addition, a minus sign for subtraction, an asterisk for multiplication, a forward slash for division, and a caret for exponents. You're probably used to seeing equations like 5 plus 5 equals, but in Excel the equal sign comes first. This is because the cell itself contains, or is equal to, the formula and its value. Let's create a simple formula to add up the budgets for June and July. I've already typed in those values, and the total is going to be $1,200 plus $1,500. But instead of typing in those numbers, we're going to use cell references. Start by clicking on the cell where you want the total to appear, and then type an equal sign, which is how you'll always start a formula. Then type the address of the first cell you want to add, which is B2, plus the second cell, B3. When you're done, press Enter on your keyboard, and Excel displays the value in the cell. Now you may be wondering why we used cell references instead of numbers. The main reason is that if you ever change the values in these cells, you won't have to retype the formula. Excel will automatically recalculate the answer so it stays up to date. You should generally use cell references in your formulas whenever you can. To edit your formula, you can double-click the cell. If you make a mistake or change your mind, you can press Escape on your keyboard, and it will go back to the way it was. Let's try another example, this time with multiplication. I want to calculate the total price for the plastic silverware, so I'll need to multiply cell E4 by F4. The formula is going in cell G4, so I'll click there and type an equal sign. This time, instead of typing the cell references, I'm going to use something called the point and click method. You may find that this is easier than typing them. Press the Enter key, and it calculates the answer. Finally, I want to show you a quick way to add a formula to several cells at once. Instead of typing formulas for each of these 3 cells, you can select the first one, and then locate the fill handle in the lower right corner of the cell. Click and drag the fill handle down, and when you release the mouse, it will automatically enter the formula into these cells. Now we can see the total cost for each item. This is a great shortcut to use when you want to have similar formulas on each row. Once you're comfortable creating formulas, you'll use them all the time because they really are one of the most powerful and convenient features of Excel.
Goodwill Community Foundation, creating opportunities for a better life.
You may already have some experience creating simple formulas that have only one type of operation. But sometimes you have to create more complex formulas that do have more than one operator, for example, addition and multiplication. To do this, you'll need to understand how Excel is calculating the answer. Excel uses a set of rules called the order of operations, which you might remember from math class. The order of operations determines which parts of the formula to calculate first. The very first thing that you calculate are the items in parentheses. Then, if you have any exponents, you'll calculate those. Next is multiplication and division. And finally, addition and subtraction. Excel knows to use the order of operations whenever it calculates a complex formula. It's important that you remember it so you can create formulas that'll give you the correct answer. To remember the order, you can just use the acronym PEMDAS. Or to make it even easier, remember the phrase, "Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally." Let's go over each of these in a little more detail. In this formula, 5 plus 2 is in parentheses. So we'll calculate that first to get 7, and then we can just multiply 3 times 7 to get 21. This formula contains an exponent, 3 to the power of 2. We'll need to calculate that first, and then we can do the addition. If you have multiplication or division, that'll come next. Here we multiply 2 times 4 to get 8, and 9 minus 8 equals 1. Now multiplication and division are considered to be on the same level. That means if you have both of them in your formula, they're calculated from left to right. In this example, we'll do the division first, and then the multiplication. If we wanted the multiplication to happen first, we could just put it in parentheses, or we could rearrange the formula so the multiplication was on the left. Finally, we have addition and subtraction. Just like multiplication and division, these are on the same level, so we'll calculate them from left to right. Okay, now let's put them all together. This formula may look really complicated, but we're just going to go step by step through the order of operations, and you'll see that it's really not that bad. We'll start with the parentheses. We'll calculate each of these to get 2 and 3. And as you can see, the formula's already starting to look a bit simpler. Next, we'll look to see if there are any exponents in this formula. There is one, 2 to the second power. When we calculate it, it becomes 4. Next, we'll do the multiplication and division, going from left to right. And now all that's left is addition. And that gives us our answer, which is 8.75. And that's the same answer Excel would give you if you entered that formula in your worksheet. Now I'm going to show you why it's so important that you follow the order of operations every time. If you don't, your formulas won't give you the correct answer. In this example, I'd like to add these 3 values and find out how much the sales tax will be. I'll start by typing the equal sign, which is how you always start a formula. Then I'll calculate D3 plus D4 plus D5. Next, I'll multiply by 0.075, which is the tax rate at 7.5%. Now, this may look like it's going to give us the correct answer, but it's not. That's because we didn't follow the order of operations. Remember, multiplication comes before addition, so Excel is going to multiply D5 by 0.075 first. Then it'll add D3 and D4, which isn't what we want. We want these 3 values to be added first. So to do that, we just need to put them in parentheses. Parentheses are often the best way of controlling which parts of the formula are calculated first. And when this formula is calculated, we can see that the answer is $20.56. So whenever you're doing a complex formula, just remember to follow the order of operations. Then you'll get the correct answer every time.
Goodwill Community Foundation, creating opportunities for a better life.
There are 2 main types of cell references in Excel, relative and absolute. Both behave differently when copied to other cells, either as part of a formula or a function. Relative references are the default, and probably the type you're going to use for most of your formulas. In this example, I need to know the total cost of each menu item on the invoice. To do this, I'll need to multiply the values in these 2 cells. I'll just enter my formula here. Start by typing the equal sign, and then the formula will be B4 times C4. When you're done, press Enter on your keyboard. Now if I use the fill handle to copy this formula to all of these cells, We can double-click each copy and see that the cell references have changed automatically. So we have B5, B6, B7, and so on. That's because these are relative references. In other words, when Excel looks at our original formula, what it actually sees is the location of the cells relative to the location of the formula. That means in this case, it's looking at the two cells to the left of our current location, and those just happen to be B4 and C4. Each copy is also looking at the two cells to the left of the formula. This technique is useful because it means we can copy the formula as we did here, and the cell references will sort of move along with it. The references don't even have to be in the same row. They can be anywhere in the sheet. There may be times when you don't want the cell references to change. Take this version of the invoice. I've added a column where we can list the sales tax for each item. We should be able to enter our formula here, then copy it to the rest of the list. To get started, I'm going to enter B4 times C4 in parentheses. Then I'm going to multiply by cell E2, which contains our tax rate at 7.5%, which is the same as 0.075. Next, I'll use the fill handle to copy the formula to the rest of these cells. But wait, that doesn't look right at all. It's even affecting the formulas in the rest of the worksheet. The first copy of our formula is correct because it's multiplying by E2, which contains our tax rate. But as we go down the list, we can see that the reference is moving in relation to the cells, which isn't what we want. We want it to stay frozen on E2 for each copy of the formula. And for that, we'll need to use an absolute reference. Absolute references have a $sign placed before the column, row, or both to keep them from changing when you copy the formula to another cell. To keep the column and the row from changing, place a $sign in front of both. To keep only the row from changing, place a $sign in front of the row only. To keep only the column from changing, place a $sign in front of the column. Most of the time, you'll be using the first type of absolute reference, the one where there's a $sign before the column and the row. Let's go back to our example and add $signs before the column and the row to make E2 an absolute reference. Now if we copy the formula to the rest of this list, the errors go away and we're left with the correct sales tax for each item. The relative reference is different in each cell, but the E2 reference, our absolute reference, stays the same. Finally, I'd like to show you how to create cell references across different worksheets in the same workbook. This can be useful if you want to create a formula on one worksheet that references a value from another. It works the same as a normal reference. You just have to include the name of the worksheet along with the cell address. So to get started, figure out what cell you want to use, then take note of its location. In this example, we're going to use cell E14 on the worksheet menu order. Next, switch to the worksheet where you want to use the reference. As you can see, I already have a formula that's calculating the total of all these services. I just need to add the total for the menu order in this cell here. To reference the cell, type the name of the worksheet first, then an exclamation point, and finally the cell address. If the worksheet name includes a space, like in this example, you'll need to add single quotation marks around the name. When you're done, press Enter, and Excel will pull the value from the other worksheet. That means if cell E14 ever changes on the menu order worksheet, it'll be updated here too. Mastering cell references is the key to creating formulas that work for you and your data. Now you know how to use relative references, absolute references, and references across multiple worksheets.
Goodwill Community Foundation, creating opportunities for a better life.
Functions are a great time-saving option for calculating data in your worksheet. They can be used in place of formulas when a formula would be too long or just too complicated to write out manually. To access the function library, go to the Formulas tab on the ribbon. Here you'll find hundreds of functions to choose from. They've all been organized into categories to make them easier to find. For example, under Financial, you'll find functions that deal with things like interest and monthly payments. Under Text, you can perform text manipulations, like converting lowercase to uppercase, replacing text, and more. Date and Time includes functions that return the current date, time, day of the week, and other useful data. Some of the most common functions are pretty simple though, like sum and average. You can access these using the drop-down arrow under AutoSum. In this example, I'd like to add these 10 cells to calculate the total. If I tried to create a formula for that, I'd have to add each cell individually. Not only would that be tedious, it would also make the formula really long, especially if I had, say, 100 cells that I wanted to add. So instead of creating a formula, I'm going to use a function. First, select the cell where you want the answer to appear. Then choose a function. In our case, we'll open the AutoSum menu, and then choose Sum. Now Excel has inserted the function and also selected the cells that are being added together. If it selects the wrong cells, you can always change that by dragging the corner handles here. When you're done, press Enter on your keyboard, and the answer will appear. Let's look at this function in a little more detail. Just like formulas, functions always start with an equal sign. But you may have noticed that there are no mathematical operators, such as addition or subtraction, like you would normally see in a formula. Instead, functions use a specific syntax that includes the name of the function, followed by one or more arguments in parentheses. The arguments tell the function which cells or numbers to use when calculating the result. In this example, we only have one argument, even though there are two different cell references. This is called a range of cells, or a cell range. A cell range is represented by two different cell references with a colon in between. In this case, the range consists of all the cells between D3 and D12. If you want to use more than one argument, you'll need to separate each one with a comma. Let's try a different function now. In this example, we have a column for the date that each item was ordered and the date that it was received. What I'd like to know is how many business days it took for each item to be delivered. First, select the cell where you want the function to go. Then choose a function if you know what category it's in. If you don't, you can try searching for it instead. Just click the Insert Function command on the far left of the ribbon. Searching for functions can be tricky, but for more experienced users, this can be an extremely useful tool. Just type a description of the function you're looking for. I'm looking for something that'll count the number of days that have elapsed, so I'll type count days and then press Enter. We've gotten a lot of different results here. To learn more about a function, just click the name, and a description will appear below. The function called net workdays returns the number of workdays between two dates, and that's exactly what we want. So I'm just going to click OK, and another dialog box will appear. There will be separate fields for each argument in the function. This function has up to 3 arguments: start date, end date, and holidays. When you click a field, you'll see a description of it below. And if you need more help, you can click the link that says Help on this function. For the start date, I'm going to select cell E3. And for the end date, I'll select F3. We know the holidays argument is optional because it's not in bold, so I'm going to leave that one blank. Before you continue, you can check the result of the function here. When you're ready, click OK, and the function will be added to the worksheet. Just like with formulas, you can copy the function using the fill handle here. And now we can see the number of business days it took for each item to be delivered. If you've never used functions before, the syntax may seem a little strange at first. But with some practice, you're bound to get the hang of it, and soon you'll be using your favorite functions over and over.
Goodwill Community Foundation, creating opportunities for a better life.
Excel worksheets can have a lot of cells, and sometimes you may find that you want to view two different parts of the spreadsheet at the same time. For example, in this spreadsheet, I have a list of salespeople in the first column, but when I scroll to the right, those names disappear, which makes it really hard to see who the sales data belongs to. We can fix this by freezing the first column so it will always stay visible. First, go to the View tab and click Freeze Panes. You have a few different options, but we just want to freeze the first column. Now when we scroll, we can easily see the names of each salesperson, no matter where they are in the spreadsheet. The spreadsheet also has dates in the second row, and I'd like to freeze them so they'll stay visible when I scroll down. But this time it's going to work a little bit differently because it's row 2, and you can see why if you go to the Freeze Panes command. There's an option to freeze the top row, but there isn't an option to just freeze the second row by itself. Instead, we'll need to freeze the top 2 rows. Since we've already frozen the first column, we'll need to reset the spreadsheet by selecting Unfreeze Panes. And now you have two options. You can either select the row below the rows that you want to freeze, or you can select a single cell, such as B3. If you only select one cell, it will freeze the rows above it and also the columns to the left, and that's exactly what we want. Next, go to the Freeze Panes command and select Freeze Panes. And now you can see a thin line in between rows 2 and 3, and also a line between columns A and B. When I scroll, I can see all of my header rows and columns, no matter where I am in the spreadsheet. Sometimes you may need to work with two different parts of the spreadsheet at the same time. There are a couple of ways to do this. One way is to click the New Window command. This will give you two separate windows, and you may need to drag the top of each window so you can see both of them. Both of these worksheets are showing the same file, and we can use it to view two different parts of the worksheet. Or if the workbook has multiple sheets, you can view two of them side by side. So I could view the 2010 sales in one window and the 2012 sales in another, which makes it very easy to compare the 2 years. If you want to go back to just viewing one window, you can close either one by clicking the Close button in the upper right corner. And then you can resize the window or click the Maximize button. Another way to view two different parts of a worksheet is to use the Split feature. This is a little bit like freezing panes, except instead of freezing them, you can actually scroll each section individually. First, if you have any frozen panes, you'll need to unfreeze panes. Then select the cell where you want the split to appear, usually somewhere near the middle. And then click the Split command. You can now see that there are vertical and horizontal dividers. There are also 4 scroll bars which you can use to scroll the different sections. Now you may find that this view is a little too cluttered, but you can make it simpler by removing one of the dividers. If you drag the vertical divider all the way to the left, it will disappear and you'll just have a horizontal divider. By scrolling the top and bottom sections, we can compare the data for any two salespeople. For example, David Carlson and Melissa Post. Depending on the spreadsheet, some of these view options may be better than others. In this example, the header rows and columns are really important, so the Freeze Panes feature is probably the best choice. You'll just have to try all of the view options to see which one works best for your spreadsheet.
Goodwill Community Foundation, creating opportunities for a better life.
When you have a lot of different rows in your spreadsheet, you may want to sort the data so you can view it more easily. Sorting can reorder things alphabetically, numerically, by date, or even by color. Depending on your preference, you can either sort from the Home tab using the Sort and Filter drop-down menu, or you can use the commands in the Data tab. In this example, I have a worksheet with a list of t-shirt orders, and I'd like to sort it alphabetically by last name. Just select any cell in the column that you want to sort, and then click the Ascending command. It's the one that says A to Z. You'll notice that when you sort one column, Excel also reorders the other columns so that each row still has the correct information. If we wanted these in reverse order, we could click the Descending command, the one that says Z to A. Now this method doesn't always work if your worksheet has an unusual layout. Watch what happens when I try to sort the data here on the right. The header row is included in the sorting area by mistake. In a situation like this, you might need to manually select the cells you want, instead of relying on Excel. This is called sorting a cell range. To get started, select the range you want to sort, including the header row if you have one. Then click the Sort command, and a dialog box will appear. Use the drop-down menu on the left to choose the column you want to sort by, then select a sorting order. In this example, we'll choose largest to smallest. When you're done, click OK, and the range will be sorted by the selected column. Notice that the rest of the worksheet wasn't affected by the sort. Sometimes the default sorting options won't work for what you have in mind. For example, if we sort the column that contains the t-shirt sizes in ascending order, the order will be large, medium, small, then extra large, because the column is being sorted alphabetically. It would be better if the sizes were listed in a more logical order. In other words, small, medium, large, then extra large. For this, we'll need to create a custom sort. To begin, click the Sort command. And on the right, you can see that it's ordering the column from A to Z. If we click this drop-down menu and select Custom List, we can enter the t-shirt sizes in the order that we want. So I'll click the box and start typing small, medium, large, and extra large. And I'm pressing Enter after each one. Then click the Add button. Make sure that your list is selected over here on the left. Then click OK to confirm, and OK again. And now the worksheet is ordered the way that we want. The only problem with this is that every other column is completely out of order. What I would really like is if the home room numbers were more organized within each size. I can do this by sorting multiple levels. This will let us sort first by t-shirt size and then by home room. Click the Sort command, then click the button that says Add Level. And now we just have to select the home room column, and we'll leave the other two fields the way they are, sorting the values from smallest to largest. When you click OK, you'll see that within each t-shirt size, the home room numbers are listed in numerical order. If we wanted to sort by home room first and then by t-shirt size, we could go back to the Sort dialog box, select one of these rows, and then use the arrows to change the order. To get the results you want, sometimes you need to create multiple levels or incorporate different types of custom sorting. Let's take a look at one more example. You may have noticed that some of the cells in this column are colored red, indicating that there's a problem with the student's payment. We can make sure that these appear at the top if we sort the worksheet by cell formatting. To do this, click the Sort command again. I want to continue using the sort options that we've just set up, so I'm going to add a new level for the payment method column. I'm also going to move it to the top of the list so that sort happens first. To sort by cell formatting, go to the drop-down menu under Sort On. Here, in addition to values, you can choose cell color, font color, or cell icon. Next, make your selections in the order field depending on what you have in mind. In this example, we want all the red cells to appear on top. When you're ready, click OK. Now we can easily see which orders still have outstanding payments. There are a lot of different ways of sorting your data depending on how you want to organize it, so take some time to experiment with the different options to find the ones that best suit your needs.
Goodwill Community Foundation, creating opportunities for a better life.
Filtering is a great feature of Excel that gives you a lot of control over which parts of your worksheet are displayed. You can use it to show only the information you need or find something specific while hiding the rest of the data temporarily. Now it's important that you have a header row because the filtering tools actually get added to the cells in the header row. In this example, I have an equipment checkout log, and there are a lot of things to keep track of, so I'd like to use some of the filters to simplify it. First, go to the Data tab and click the Filter command. And you'll see these drop-down arrows added to your header row. These are what you'll use to access all of the filtering options. Here you'll see a list of all of the different values that appear in this column. I'd like to just view the laptops and projectors, so I'll uncheck this box to quickly deselect everything, then check Laptop and Projector. Click OK, and now the drop-down arrow has changed to a different icon to show that there is a filter in this column. We can narrow down this data even further by adding another filter to a different column. Let's filter by the date that the items were checked out. This shows all of the months that appear in this column, so I'll uncheck the months that I don't want, then click OK. To get rid of any filter, just click the icon again and select Clear Filter. So that's how you do simple filtering. And now let's look at some more advanced techniques. Using the same menu, we can also search for values that appear in this column. In this example, a lot of our equipment is made by a company called Ceres. So if we enter that here, Excel will look for a match anywhere in these cells, and then list only those results below. To apply the filter, just click OK. For a little more control, you can use text filters instead. You can access these from the same menu under Text Filters. Here you can filter information that fits more specific criteria, for example, cells that contain a certain number of characters, or data that doesn't contain a word that you specify. In this example, we're going to choose Does Not Contain, and then enter Laptop to exclude anything that contains this word, including laptops and laptop travel bags. Click OK, and Excel will refilter the data. Next, let's say I only want to show items where the ID number is between 3000 and 6000. I can click the drop-down arrow and go to Number Filters. There are a lot of different options here, but for what I need, I'm going to choose Between. Now I can type in whatever values I want in these two fields. So this will show rows that are greater than or equal to 3000 and less than or equal to 6000. Click OK, and now all of these values are between 3000 and 6000. Date filters are really cool because they can display data from a certain time period, such as last year, next quarter, between two dates, and more. In this example, I'd like to find out which items were checked out this week. All you have to do is go to Date Filters, and you'll find many options to choose from. I'll select This Week. At this point, we have 3 different filters applied to the worksheet, so it's filtering out most of the items and just showing the ones that meet all of the criteria. If you'd like to remove any of the filters, you can clear them one by one like I showed you before, or you can turn off filtering altogether. Just click the Filter command again. As you can see, filtering can narrow things down really quickly, and it gives you so many different options you can probably find a use for it with any worksheet.
Goodwill Community Foundation, creating opportunities for a better life.
Tables are a great way to add more advanced formatting to your worksheets, like banded rows, preset color schemes, and other design elements that can save you tons of time. Let's take a look. To create a table, all you have to do is select the cells you want to include, then click the Format as Table command on the Home tab. Here you'll find several different styles to choose from. Just pick whichever one appeals to you the most. You can always choose a different table style later. If you want your table to have special formatting in the header row, make sure you leave this box checked. You can also change the selection if you need to. When you're ready, click OK, and now we have a table. Notice that every table includes filtering by default, which will let you sort your data or narrow it down depending on what you need. You can apply filtering anytime using the drop-down arrows here. If you need to fit more content into your table, not to worry. Excel gives you two ways to add more columns or rows in the same style as the rest of the table. Just select a cell in the last column or row, then start typing in a new cell, or you can click, hold, and drag the bottom right corner of the table to create any size you need. This is looking pretty good. I think I'm ready to try some different formatting options now. For that, you'll find everything you need on the Design tab, which appears anytime you have your table selected. Remember how I said you could change your table style once you added one to your worksheet? You can do that here using the options in the Table Styles group. And this time you get a preview. This is one of the benefits of using tables in Excel. They make it easy to change the look and feel of your worksheet, and it's a lot faster than formatting the cells yourself. Why don't we go with this one? Next to the table styles, Excel gives you a few more options for customizing your table. For example, you could add special formatting to the last column to make it stand out, or you could add a total row. These will all look slightly different depending on the table style you've chosen, so you might need to experiment to get the look you want. If you change your mind, you can always remove the table from your workbook without losing any of the formatting or the data. You will lose some functionality though, like table styles and filtering, so keep this in mind before you go through with the steps. All you have to do is make sure your table is selected, then click Convert to Range on the Design tab. Next, click Yes to confirm, and the range will no longer be a table. The Design tab has disappeared, but you can still adjust the formatting manually using the options on the Home tab. Now you know how to add and remove tables in Excel.
Goodwill Community Foundation, creating opportunities for a better life.
When working with numerical data in Excel, sometimes a chart is just what you need to show the meaning behind the numbers. In this video, we're going to look at some of the different types of charts and also some ways that you can customize them to best represent your data. Column charts are good all-around charts. They work with many different types of data. Whereas line charts are best for showing trends over time. Pie charts are unique because they let you see your data in proportion instead of on a graph. We also have the bar chart, which is basically just a column chart turned on its side. And finally, area charts, which are similar to line charts, except the areas under the lines are filled in. In this example, I have a table of sales figures for a bookstore. They're organized by genre and year, but it's hard to see any trends without looking at the numbers one by one. A chart would make things much easier. To create a chart, select your data, including any headers that you want to use. Then go to the Insert tab and look to the commands in the Charts group. For this data, I think I'll go with something in the column category. This one looks nice and simple. Okay, this is a lot clearer. Now I can see that sci-fi and fantasy have the strongest sales with an all-time high in 2009. How do I know this column is from 2009? Well, below the chart, there's a type of key called a legend, and this tells us what each color represents. Right now, the columns are grouped by genre, but you might prefer to see them grouped by year instead. There's an easy way to make this change. Just make sure the chart is selected, then click Switch Row/Column on the Design tab. See how the chart has been rearranged? Basically, it's the same data, but the years and the genres have switched places. You can always experiment with this to see which option is going to work best for your data. If you want to try a different chart altogether, click the Change Chart Type command on the far right of the tab, then pick something else from the dialog box. I think I'll go with a line chart this time. Line charts work well for data like this. For example, we can see right away that romance novels are starting to catch up to sci-fi and fantasy, but mystery sales have stayed consistently low. If you want, you can change the chart style to give your chart a different look and feel. As you can see, you have several different options to choose from. You can also change the chart layout itself. Just go to the Quick Layout command and make a selection from the menu. Not all of these options will work well for the data in your chart. Just keep going until you find something you like. Why don't we go with something a little bit like this? You can make further adjustments using the Add Chart Element command or the Chart Elements shortcut. Just look for the button with the plus sign. Here you can add or remove elements from your chart depending on your preferences. Or you can click the arrow to the right to access even more options. To edit one of your chart elements, like the chart title in this example, all you have to do is select the placeholder, then replace the text. Finally, whenever you insert a chart, it appears on the same sheet as the source data by default. If you want, you can move it to a different worksheet by following these steps. First, make sure your chart is selected, then click the Move Chart command. Next, select the sheet where you want the chart to go. In this example, we'll choose New Sheet. When you're ready, click OK, and now the chart appears in whatever location you chose. Charts are a great tool for presenting numerical data and also enhancing your worksheets in Excel. With so many options to choose from, you can achieve exactly the result you want.
Goodwill Community Foundation, creating opportunities for a better life.
There may come a time when you're collaborating on a project and you want a friend or coworker to make some changes to your workbook. In this example, I'm creating a schedule for a company retreat, and I want my teammates to fill in some of the blanks and possibly make some corrections. There are two features in Excel that'll make this a lot easier: Track Changes and Comments. You can access both of them on the Review tab. First, click the Track Changes command, then choose Highlight Changes. Next, check the box where it says Track Changes while editing. This will turn the feature on. You can also limit what types of changes are highlighted, but I want to highlight them all, so I'm going to leave these settings the way they are. Make sure the box next to Highlight Changes on Screen is checked, then go ahead and click OK. If Excel asks to save your workbook, just click the button to save and continue. And now we can start making some changes. Let's say I'm a coworker and I want to add some information to the schedule. When I do that, the cell gets this little triangle in the corner and also a border. If you or anyone else mouses over the cell, you can see exactly what was changed and also who made the change. This makes it easy to keep track of multiple edits. This workbook now has several different track changes, so many that I think they'd be easier to read if they were listed on a separate worksheet. To do this, you'll need to save your workbook first, then click the Track Changes command, and choose Highlight Changes. Next, check the option that says List the changes on a new sheet. Then click OK. A new sheet will appear with a list of all the changes in the workbook. Now we can easily review the edits and also see which cells they're in. Right now, the changes that we've made are sort of temporary, meaning they aren't officially part of the workbook yet. To make them permanent, we need to accept or reject them, depending on what we want to keep. First, go to Track Changes, then choose Accept or Reject from the menu, and a little dialog box will appear. I want to look at all of the changes that haven't been reviewed yet, so I'm going to leave this first option checked. You could also narrow it down to who made the change, or to a specific range of cells. Click OK when you're ready. You'll be able to review each change and then accept or reject them one by one. I know I want to keep all the changes in the workbook though, so I'm going to choose Accept All. Now the changes are permanent. However, the markup won't go away until we turn Track Changes off. We'll get back to that in a minute. Another useful feature for collaborating on workbooks is the Comments feature. For example, say I want to leave a note or a question about this item without actually changing what's in the cell. We can do that by selecting the cell, then clicking the New Comment command. Now just type your comment here and click anywhere outside the box when you're done. Comments will show up as a little triangle in the top right corner of the cell. Mouse over the cell, and you can easily read the comment. If you want to view all of the comments at once, there's a way to do that too. Just click the command that says Show All Comments. You can use the same command to hide them again. You can even edit the comments in your workbook, for instance, to update something you said, or maybe to reply to someone else. Just select the cell you want, then go ahead and click Edit Comment. I think I'm finished with the schedule now, so I'm going to delete all the comments by selecting each one and then clicking the Delete command. I'm also going to turn off Track Changes, which will finally remove the markup that you can still see here. All you have to do is go to the Track Changes command, then Highlight Changes. Now uncheck the box that says Track Changes while editing. Once you do this, all the track changes in the workbook will be accepted automatically, so make sure you're ready for that before you continue. Click OK, then click Yes to confirm, and now you're all set. All of these features can be a big help when it comes to collaborating on workbooks. They make it easy to keep track of revisions and communicate ideas back and forth, so you can work on the same file with anyone you want.
Goodwill Community Foundation, creating opportunities for a better life.
There are a couple things you can do to prep your workbook before you send it out. For example, first, you might want to run a spell check. Then you can finalize the file and even protect it to keep other people from making any more changes. To run a spell check, go to the Review tab, then click the Spelling command. A dialog box will appear where you can type the correct spelling yourself, or you can choose one of the suggestions, then click Change. Now, spell check isn't perfect. Sometimes it'll say a word is spelled wrong when it isn't, like people's names, business names, and other proper nouns. If that happens, you can ignore the error, or you can click Add to Dictionary. This will save the word so it never comes up as a spelling mistake again. And it looks like that's it. Now that we're done with our spell check, we can move on to the next step, finalizing the file itself. You'll find everything you need in the Backstage view under Inspect Workbook. This feature can help you remove any personal info that may be hidden in the workbook's file data. It'll also check for things that you generally don't want in the final draft, for example, comments or annotations that you forgot to delete. Some of the changes from the inspector can't be undone, so it's a good idea to save an extra copy before you continue. When you're ready, go ahead and click Check for Issues, choose Inspect Document from the menu, then click Inspect in the dialog box. The results will appear with an exclamation mark next to anything that might contain sensitive info. In this example, it looks like there are some hidden document properties and personal information, and also some comments that we definitely don't want in the final draft. To remove an issue, just click the button to the right that says Remove All, and Excel will take care of the rest. I'm also going to remove the personal info the inspector found, just because the people I'm sharing with don't really need access to it. When you're done, click the Close button. Okay, so our workbook has been finalized. Now we can protect it to keep people from making any further changes. This step is optional, but it's a great way to control who's allowed to view or edit your work. All you have to do is click the Protect Workbook command and make a selection from the menu. Some of these options offer a high level of protection, such as Encrypt with Password, which is good for really important or sensitive workbooks. If you don't need that much security, though, you might want to consider one of the other options. In this case, I'm going to choose Mark as Final, which will just make the workbook read-only. This should discourage people from making changes to the file and also let them know that this is the final draft. Once you make your selection, click OK to confirm, then OK again, and the setting will be applied. Now when someone opens the file, they'll see this little bar at the top of the window, and they won't be able to type or delete anything. If they do need to make changes, they can click the button that says Edit Anyway. In short, this option doesn't provide any actual security. However, it's a good way to keep people from changing or deleting something by accident. Now you know some ways to finalize and also protect your workbook before sending it out to others.
Goodwill Community Foundation, creating opportunities for a better life.
You may already have some experience using charts and sparklines to visualize data in Excel. Conditional formatting offers yet another way to visualize your data, using things like color coding based on the cell's value. In this example, I have the sales figures for a number of different salespeople, and I'd like to find out who's meeting or exceeding their monthly sales goal. Of course, we could just look at the numbers, but it might be easier if they were highlighted somehow, which we can do using a conditional formatting rule. First, select your data, then go to Conditional Formatting on the Home tab. Next, mouse over Highlight Cells rules, and in this case we're going to choose Greater Than. Now the sales goal for each person on this list is $4,000 per month. If we enter that number here, You can see in the background that any cell greater than 4,000 is being formatted automatically. If you want, you can even choose a different formatting option. Just click OK when you're done. As you can see, the formatted cells really stand out now, so we can easily tell who's met or exceeded their goal. Looks like August wasn't a very good month, for example, but September and October were much better. Next, let's take a look at some of the conditional formatting presets. We're just going to reselect our data and then go back to the conditional formatting command. You have 3 different types of presets to choose from: data bars, color scales, and icon sets. To learn more about each one, mouse over the options in the menu. Data bars are kind of like bar graphs. The higher the value, the longer the bar in the cell. Color scales, on the other hand, will change the background color based on the cell's value. Icon sets can be used to add different symbols, ratings, and indicators. And you have quite a few styles to choose from, depending on what you need. I think this one's especially easy to read. The icons will help us see which items are the highest, and also the lowest when compared to each other. We can also see which ones are about average. You might have noticed that the first rule we applied is still visible, the one that's changing the fill color for cells above 4,000. That's because Excel lets you have multiple conditional formatting rules at the same time, so you can highlight different things. To clear the current formatting rules, just select your cells, then go to Conditional Formatting, and mouse over the option that says Clear Rules. You can clear the selected cells or the entire sheet. In this case, though, I'd just like to remove the greater than 4,000 rule while keeping the rest of the icons. We can do that by going to Manage Rules instead. Here you'll find a list of all the rules that are currently applied to your cells. To remove one, just select the rule you want, then click Delete Rule, and click OK. Conditional formatting is a great tool for visualizing parts of your worksheet. So practice using some of the rules on your own and try combining them to see what they can tell you about your data.
Goodwill Community Foundation, creating opportunities for a better life.
One of the best things about Excel is the fact that a single worksheet can hold so much information. In fact, you could fill billions of cells if you needed that much room. A file with that much data could get pretty overwhelming, but there's a feature called pivot tables that can help. Pivot tables let you summarize and manipulate your data without actually changing anything in the worksheet. Let's take a look at how they work. In this example, I have some company sales data, with columns for the salesperson, region, account, order amount, and month. And I need to find the answer to a very specific question. What is the amount sold by each salesperson? Because each salesperson has data on more than one row, I'd normally have to add these up in order to find the answer. But a pivot table can do this for us automatically, which will make the task much easier. First, you need to select your data. You can just click any cell if it's formatted as a table. Otherwise, you need to select all the cells yourself, and don't forget your column headers. When you're ready, go to the Insert tab, then click the Pivot Table command. You'll usually want to place your pivot table on a new worksheet, so make sure this option is selected. Then click OK, and a new sheet will appear. Over on the left is our blank pivot table. It's okay that there's nothing there yet. To the right is a list of fields that have actually been pulled from our column headers. This is where we control what is or isn't displayed in the pivot table. But before we continue, let's take another look at that question. What is the amount sold by each salesperson? This question tells us exactly which fields to use to find out the answer: salesperson and order amount. All you have to do is check the box next to the field, and it'll be added to one of the areas below, in this case the rows category. Another method is to drag and drop the field into place. We'll put this one under Values. If we go back to the pivot table, now we can see the information we were looking for. In other words, the amount sold by each salesperson. So our question has been answered just by choosing what fields to include. One of the best things about pivot tables is how easy they are to modify, so you can view and analyze different things. Let's say, for example, that you wanted to know each person's monthly sales, not just their total sales. Just drag the month field down here to columns, and this will add a column for each month in the worksheet. If we wanted to know what each region sold, we could take out the month and salesperson fields and then drag region down to rows. So each time we change the fields, the pivot table is just combining the source data in a different way, so we can view the information we need. And we're doing all this without adding or changing anything in the original worksheet. You can even experiment by dragging the fields into different areas, but some combinations work better than others. For instance, if I move order amount over to columns or rows, you can see that it doesn't really give us any useful data. Since order amount contains numerical values, it really does work best in the values area. Finally, if we click the arrow next to order amount and go to value field settings, we can change the function to something other than sum. Instead, we could count the number of cells, calculate the average, or use any of the other options here. Some of these functions will be more useful than others depending on your data, so that's just something to keep in mind. In part 2 of this video, we're going to talk about report filters. We'll also take a look at slicers and pivot charts, which can give you even more ways to work with your pivot table.
Goodwill Community Foundation, creating opportunities for a better life.
In part 1, we talked about the basics of creating a pivot table. In this video, we're going to take a look at 3 more features called report filters, slicers, and pivot charts. Right now, this pivot table is showing us the regional sales totals for all the salespeople in our worksheet. However, I'd like to try removing certain people so we can see how their sales are impacting their regions. We can do this by adding a report filter, which can be used to narrow down the data in your pivot table. First, drag the salesperson field to the filters area. Then look to your pivot table and click the filter that's been added to the upper right corner. Next, check the option that says Select Multiple Items. Now we can check or uncheck the salespeople above, depending on who we want to include. I'm going to remove Michael Brennan, Richard Dumlau, and Shannon Thompson. When you're ready, click OK, and the filter will be applied. In this case, that means the totals have changed, and 2 of the regions have also been filtered out based on the people that we unchecked. If you like the way filters work, you might want to try adding a slicer next. Slicers make filtering even faster and easier by giving you access to the filters in their own separate pane. First, make sure you're on the Analyze tab, then click the Insert Slicer command. A dialog box will appear where you can check the filter you want. We'll use Salesperson like before. Now we can just click the salespeople we want to see without having to go to the filtering menu. You can even select multiple adjacent people by clicking and dragging your mouse. To select more than one non-adjacent item, hold Control on your keyboard while you click. As you can see, the pivot table changes each time to reflect the data you've selected. The last thing I'd like to show you is a neat feature called pivot charts. Pivot charts are basically the same as regular charts, except they show whatever is in your pivot table. To get started, click any cell in your pivot table, then go to the Insert tab, and click the Pivot Chart command. A dialog box will appear where you can select the chart type you want, then go ahead and click OK. Now any changes you make to the pivot table will show up in the pivot chart as well. For example, let's see what happens when we move these fields around a bit, so we can view each person's monthly sales data. With a pivot table, a pivot chart, and a slicer, we can look at the data in so many different ways, all without changing or deleting any of the original content. It's a great way to find whatever information you're looking for, or you can just experiment to see if you discover something new.